On this show, we try really, really hard to be fair. And we have a clear perspective. We never hide that. We're progressives, and we have a point of view about certain people, political parties, companies, etc. But you cannot let that get in the way of new developments, facts. So, boy, do we have an interesting case of that in the case of Rex Tillerson. So, I am no fan of Rex Tillerson, and I don't know any progressive that is. Rex Tillerson was the CEO of ExxonMobil. Not only did ExxonMobil pollute the environment, contribute to climate change in a devastating way, but new memos show that they knew about it for a long time and covered it up. And I believe Rex Tillerson went into the Trump administration to try to get a deal with the Russians and ExxonMobil back on the plate. As it turned out, it didn't work because the Senate and the House overwhelmingly voted for sanctions, and they could not get that $500 billion deal back into effect. So I'm telling you all that because not only am I not a fan of Rex Tillerson, there's good reason not to be a fan of Rex Tillerson, and I'll sprinkle in one more thing: his hypocrisy. So ExxonMobil is one of the leading companies in the country that does fracking. When they went to do fracking near Rex Tillerson's house in Texas, he flipped out and was like, "No, literally not in my backyard." So what happened? I thought fracking was awesome. Apparently not so much when it's near your home. So all the reasons not to love Rex Tillerson. That being said, an interesting report out of The Intercept done by Alex Emmons with inside sources inside the United States government, State Department, and the White House, showing that Rex Tillerson might have been a bit of a hero in this particular case. So let me give you the facts, and then you decide for yourself, okay? Emmons writes, in the months that followed Rex Tillerson's departure, and of course he has now left the State Department and he was fired by Trump, press reports strongly suggested that the countries lobbying hardest for Tillerson's removal were Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, both of which were frustrated by Tillerson's attempts to mediate and end their blockade of Qatar. That's very interesting. Now, there was some curious situation around the departure of Rex Tillerson and Russia. Now, to the point about how Tillerson, I'm not positive, is the most honest actor in the world, to say the least. As soon as it was made evident that ExxonMobil did not want that deal with Russia anymore because they didn't think we could lift the sanctions, Tillerson was fired within a week of that. Okay, but to be fair to Tillerson, he disagreed with Trump on Russia and was much tougher on Russia than Trump was, and some thought that Trump might have been mad about that. But either way, even though I think that he clearly wanted that deal done, he still was honest in regards to how he dealt with Russia on behalf of the United States of America near the end. Whether that angered Trump or not is a good and open question, but apparently Russian interference is not the only thing we have to worry about, as this story explains. There are a lot of countries trying to interfere with at least our policymaking, that is for sure, let alone our elections. Now, them trying to influence us is nothing new. And every country tries to influence us, whether they're our allies or our enemies, in one way or another. But the question is, do we listen to them, and why do we listen to them? So in this case, Tillerson made some enemies in the United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia. Let's find out why. They explain furthermore, they're citing other people's reporting as well. One report in the New York Times even suggested that the UAE ambassador to Washington knew that Tillerson would be forced out 3 months before he was fired in March. Now that piece of evidence is important because it goes to show you that not only did they want him out, these foreign countries, UAE and Saudi Arabia, not only did they push for it, but apparently they knew about it before the American public did. So that shows certainly their influence in it being able to get him fired, and that apparently at least some people in the Trump White House confide in them more than they confide in the American people. So now onto the new evidence. Emmons explains that The Intercept has learned of a previously unreported episode that stoked the UAE and Saudi Arabia's anger at Tillerson, and that may have played a key role in his removal. In the summer of 2017, several months before the Gulf allies started pushing for his ouster, Tillerson intervened to stop a secret Saudi-led, UAE-backed plan to invade and essentially conquer Qatar, according to one current member of the US intelligence community and two former State Department officials, all of whom declined to be named, citing the sensitivity of the matter. Wow. So Saudi Arabia and UAE were going to roll in tanks to a nearby country and just take it. That's insane. I remember the George H.W. Bush years. You know, there's the phrase New World Order is very maligned and people don't like it. But you know, as he explained it, Bush Sr. explained it, it was that you cannot attack another country that did not attack you. Now, his son, of course, destroyed that rule, part of the reason why I was against him. But this would be an absolute obliteration of that rule. Qatar didn't do anything to Saudi Arabia and UAE. By the way, part of the reason they might have wanted to do it is some religious rivalry. Another is basically the soap opera of the different princes and sheikhs and kings within the Gulf. But the third was, it's possible they just wanted to take their money. There's a lot of natural gas in Qatar. Saudi Arabia is now starting to run out of their money. Over the last couple of years, they've lost a third of their reserves, which is hundreds of billions of dollars. Qatar, on the other hand, has $320 billion in reserves sitting there, let alone the natural gas that they have. The $320 billion is a sovereign wealth fund. It is just cash. So it's possible that that was just high stakes robbery, where they would just take a country for their cash. So that is, of course, crazy. What's even crazier, especially from our perspective, is that we have troops, American troops, inside Qatar. So this plan is mental. And so Tillerson did the right thing. He put the brakes on it. So let's give you more information here. In the calls that Tillerson made, Tillerson dealt extensively with the Qatari government as the CEO of ExxonMobil, urged Saudi King Salman, then Deputy Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and Foreign Minister Adel Al-Jubeir not to attack Qatar or otherwise escalate hostilities, the sources told The Intercept. Tillerson also encouraged Defense Secretary Jim Mattis to call his counterparts in Saudi Arabia to explain the dangers of such an invasion, which you would think would be obvious, but apparently was not. And of course, the current crown prince in Saudi Arabia is absolutely reckless. No wonder he and Trump get along so well. He arrested other members of his family, basically stole their money under the guise of corruption, which is hilarious. And as Saudi Arabia now is concerned about their cash reserves, he bought a yacht that was valued, according to some reports, $500 million, not $500,000, $500 million for just a boat. Okay, so that's this guy, and he arrested and threatened the leader of Lebanon, which is unprecedented, basically held him hostage in Saudi Arabia when he was on a foreign visit. So him thinking of just simply conquering another country is not only not unheard of in his crazy case, but look at what they're doing to Yemen right now. Saudi Arabia has created the worst humanitarian crisis on the planet with their brutal bombing and blockade of Yemen. And these are our so-called allies. Hey, Trump supporters, are you proud? You're proud that your guy is in bed with Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates and does their bidding for them and fires the American Secretary of State based on their request? Wow. I thought you were concerned that Obama bowed to someone. Apparently Trump taking orders from a sheikh in the middle of a Muslim country like Saudi Arabia and UAE. I don't care that they're Muslim, but a lot of you MAGA guys care about Muslims. It turns out your so-called alpha male is the one taking orders from those Muslims. Enjoy. More details. Al Udeid Air Base near Doha, Qatar's capital city, is the forward headquarters of US Central Command and home to some 10,000 American troops. So our Secretary of State says, do not invade a country where we have 10,000 troops. And then he gets fired for it, according to these internal sources within the Trump administration. Does that sound like we're making America great again? I don't think the hat said make UAE great again, did they? Okay. The plan, which was largely devised by the Saudi and UAE crown princes and was likely some weeks away from being implemented, involves Saudi ground troops crossing the land border into Qatar and with military support from the UAE, advancing roughly 70 miles towards Doha, circumventing the US air base. Saudi forces would then seize the capital. That is a terrible plan. As you can see with the war that Saudi Arabia has conducted in Yemen, apparently wars are not easy. You think you just walk into a country and take it? How's that working for you in Yemen? Not very well. You're stuck in a mire. And if it had gone poorly, as it almost certainly would have in Qatar, the Saudis are generally incompetent as a government. It's a dictatorship, not really one based on merit, but based on random genetic lottery. So of course, and they grew up incredibly wealthy. So the leadership is a total disaster. They have unearned confidence. They botched it in Yemen. They would have botched it in Qatar. And in that case, our American troops would have been stuck in the middle. Thank God that Rex Tillerson and Jim Mattis and whoever else was responsible stopped that insane idea. And Tillerson gets fired for that. Tillerson is not an American hero in 1,000 other ways. But if he actually prevented this war, he saved a ton of lives, and some of them might have been American, and he saved a colossal debacle in the middle of the volatile Middle East. Now, meanwhile, as Tillerson is trying to calm everything down and trying to explain to UAE and Saudi Arabia that, hey, America stands with Qatar, which has an American base in the middle of it, the only country in the Gulf that will allow that, Trump goes out and says at the same time, the nation of Qatar, unfortunately, has historically been a funder of terrorism at a very high level. How about Saudi Arabia? Have they been a funder of terrorism? Saudi Arabia, of course, is the home of 15 out of the 19 9/11 hijackers. It's the home of Osama bin Laden. It's the home of the people who funded the Sunni insurgency against us in Iraq and that had our troops killed. But Donald Trump has a lot of business deals with Saudi Arabia. One of the top fundraisers for the Republicans, Elliot Broidy, wanted a $600 million contract with UAE, and he got one. And he raised a lot of money for Donald Trump, let alone any other nefarious deal that Broidy and Trump have together. Jared Kushner on the phone with the UAE all the time, looking to make a business deal in New York with the UAE before. And he was looking to make one with Qatar, and they backed out of it. Is that punishment for this? That stuff, maybe we'll find out later. But it is absolutely evident that the Trump family personally has a lot invested in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. So look, and I don't want anybody to mistake what I'm saying. I got no love for Qatar either. I think Qatar has a huge host of problems. It's also a dictatorship. The way that they have conducted themselves in building up for the World Cup is a disaster. So Qatar is not necessarily a great ally of ours either, but they do have an American base, and starting a war with them would be a terrible idea. So, but Trump apparently wanted to go in that direction, and his public comments clearly indicate that he is on the side of the Saudis and the UAE and against Qatar. And lastly, Hemmes explains, according to one news report, Tillerson was frustrated with the White House for undercutting him, and his aides suspected that the line in Trump's prepared Rose Garden remarks had been written by the UAE ambassador, Yusuf al-Otaiba, a powerful DC player who maintained, quote, almost constant phone and email contact with Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, according to Politico. The United Arab Emirates is writing Donald Trump's speeches, according to that report. What was that about Make America Great Again? I can't believe that times have gotten so dark that we needed Rex Tillerson to be the cooler head and to actually care about America and be a patriot for once. But he was apparently, and so for that he should receive a ton of credit. And you should take that in the totality of his career with significant downsides. But that is a major upside. If it is true that he prevented a war, it doesn't get any bigger than that. And of course, the totally reckless, corrupt person who did not mind that war and was frustrated that it did not begin was President Donald Trump. Two easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.